Welcome, everyone. My name is Solimar Salas. I'm the Vice President for Museum Content and Programming at the Museum of Latin American Art. We welcome you today, Wednesday, August 25th, 2021, to this edition of the MOLAA Zoom Project in conversation with the artist, Gabriella Sanchez, where MOLAA Chief Curator Gabriela Urtiaga will discuss with the artist her work and her career. This session is sponsored by Lamont James Nash. MOLAA would also like to acknowledge the support of the Dwight Stewart Youth Fund, the Kenneth T. and Eileen L. Norris Foundation, and the Arts Council for Long Beach for their constant support of the educational programs at the Museum of Latin American Art. In each chapter, in conversation with the artist and our MOLAA Chief Curator, we place the focus on a series of specific artworks, which require a close inspection and deliberate process of contemplation and exploration, delving into the ideas surrounding the creation of the works, their sources of research and inspiration, in an effort to immerse ourselves in the world of the artists. In chapter 13 of the MOLAA Zoom Project, we interview this important and up-and-coming artist, Gabriella Sanchez, who lives and works in Los Angeles, California. Gabriella Sanchez, born in 1988, is a self-directed learner, a fan of sci-fi, and a multidisciplinary artist. As a painter, she employs a range of artistic expressions from abstraction to portraiture, with a particular focus on both form and language within the perspectives of art, design, and psychology. This is done to re-examine, reimagine, and reimage themes from her own life and the life of her loved ones, which address issues of class in relation to labor, race, addiction, gender, education, imprisonment, and system-induced death. She does this through a lens which incorporates public archives alongside personal imagery and narrative. Her art practice focuses on art making as a tool for survival and a tool for coping with survival. She began exhibiting her paintings and works on paper in 2016, and since then, her work has been exhibited at spaces such as LACMA, Jeffrey Deitch in New York and LA, Charlie James Gallery in Los Angeles, Páramo Galeria in Guadalajara, the Crocker Art Museum in Sacramento, California, STEMS Gallery in Brussels, LMAK Gallery in New York, and the Mexican Consulate in LA. Sanchez has exhibited in international art fairs, including Frieze, Los Angeles, Zona Maco in Mexico City, Expo Chicago, and the Armory Show in New York. Her work is in notable collections, including the Los Angeles County Museum of Art, the Crocker Art Museum, the J.P. Morgan and Chase Collection, and numerous esteemed private collections. Gabriella Sanchez lives and works in Los Angeles and is represented by Charlie James Gallery. Welcome, Gabriela, to today's session. It's an honor to have you here and also to be the host for your exhibition. I'm leaving everybody with Gabriela Urtiaga, MOLAA's Chief Curator, who will be in charge of today's session. Have a good day and enjoy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Solimar, and all the MOLAA team. Thank you for your introduction. Hello, everyone, and welcome to MOLAA. Bienvenidos a MOLAA. Thank you for joining us today in this special Zoom project as we celebrate the first solo museum exhibition of the amazing multidisciplinary artist Gabriella Sanchez. And let me tell you that Partial Picture, that is the name of the show, is an invitation to discover her creative process and her work like a result of numberless questions and impressions that emerge from her family history and archive and from the history of her city of Los Angeles. And for that, it's a real pleasure to talk with you, Gabi. Hello, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. I'm excited to be here. Thank you, guys.
Oh, thank you for your time, Gabi. And well, it will be great if you can tell us about how are you feeling during this special moment in your career and what does exhibition represent to you?
Yeah, I'm feeling really great, a little tired, really fortunate. And yeah, I'm really excited that, some conversations that I want to have, that there is space being made for that, and that it just feels like a really exciting time in general to be making art, especially in LA in these contexts. And so I'm really excited. It feels it's an energizing moment for me.
Oh, excellent. Nice to hear that. And Gabriela, in your work, you combine text with photographic images and a rich symbolic language to evince fragmentary glimpses of memory, identity, and representation. And could you tell us, how do you find that way to express your feeling and questions through your art making? And I would like to invite you to talk about your first large-scale painting from 2017, Enter and Open.
Yeah, I think, you know, I kind of stumbled into art, and the first pieces that I was really making were more glitchy art videos and performance installation, but I was doing a lot of graphic design to make money. I was doing a lot of freelance graphic design. And then when I started making art again, I decided I wanted to make large scale paintings. So these are on paper, and I made these in 2017. I pinned paper to my studio walls and got paint from Home Depot, some Sharpies, just whatever. And sometimes I work just intuitively and don't map it out. Sometimes I map things out. These I just went for, and I didn't really know what I was going to paint when I started. I knew that I was going to kind of approach it in a composition way that I would graphic design, but that was kind of it. And what I ended up doing was really painting a lot about my dad and my family, and processing, honestly, a lot of grief. So the painting on the left is, it kind of ended up being a painting about my dad. And you see the word enter there. But if you see it in person, you can see that there's actually also the word abierto that's coming through underneath on the left side. You can see Sharpie like coming through the paint. And it kind of, my dad was in and out of jail a lot. And now we call it the school to prison pipeline. But back then we didn't really have those words. And so it was just this cycle that was always in his life and in our lives as subsequent of that. And so this painting really was about that kind of cycle, you know, where it's not necessarily clear if he's going into jail or into a dark place or coming out, you know, and that's kind of, that tension is kind of supposed to be there, of that in between space. And the number on the side is actually like a combination of it's some numbers from his inmate number and a few numbers from my social security number, but shortened, you know, so that it was safe to put out there. But and you'll see like the letters RE there, and that's something that comes up a lot in my work, like in the statement that you all read. There, I like to do a lot of repetition in my work. A lot, for me, it's a way of re-examining and reimaging and reimagining. And then also within that, this idea of this cycle of life, death, and rebirth. And then the painting on the right was painted at the same time and kind of ended up being like speaking directly with this piece. And this one, it kind of ended up being more like a self-portrait, where the like black shape behind I thought of it as kind of like a tunnel. And so kind of coming out of this tunnel, and you see up on the left this it's hard to tell here, but it's drawn in graphite and just ballpoint pen, and it says "in memory," as kind of like a symbol for my dad. And you see the word open here with, again, the letters RE, and kind of this idea of like coming out of this. And the word blank in Sharpie is scrawled across the shoulder. And that's some, I think this may have been the first time I did that, but it shows up a lot in my work still. And the idea with that is kind of this idea of like how to retain yourself, how to stay rooted, while also being able to have a level of self-determination where you can decide your own path in life, where you can stay connected to your family, your culture, your traditions, your roots, while also moving in the ways that you want to move, rather than in some of the paths that you know, society and a lot of the systems that we have to work in sometimes try to slate us in, and how we can have that mobility.
Yeah, and Gabriela, in your work that you mentioned, you depict the various categories that occur around culture and urban experience, and you investigate how these categories are formed. And I would like to invite you to talk about your creative process, linking with the artwork like Jess and Diana from 2020, where you explore some psychological tests and some interpretation, right?
Yeah. So the top painting is a painting of my sister, and then the painting below is a painting of my friend Diana. And I did these during the pandemic, and so me and a friend went and I told my friends and family like that they could dress however they wanted, and they could just like pose however they wanted, and with the knowledge that this was gonna like where it was gonna go, and so the painting of my sister up top, the shape around her in the portrait on the left, I kind of see that shape as wings, and then the shape on the right is that same shape but just flipped, and that shape comes from a psychological projection test called Rorschach ink blots, and psychological projection tests are something that I use frequently in my work. I was studying child development, so like a lot of child psychology before I did art, and a lot of these projection tests are used within schools, within policing, in the military. They're used all over, and they're a way of kind of assessing one's mental and emotional state and potential biases sometimes as well. And so this isn't necessarily saying like that these tests are good or bad. It's more just like talking about how we use image and ingest image to create meaning, and then have this meaning play out onto the path that people can sometimes be slotted for, you know, thinking about how they're used within education and stuff sometimes. And so here also I was thinking a lot about a lot of my images. When I first started really doing portraiture, I was doing, and I still do, but like hardline abstraction. So you could see the shape of the person, but their face was totally concealed. And part of that is a type of protection for me, a way of, you know, working with family members or people's images who, you know, have passed or had records, or just a way of protecting them. And here I was thinking a lot about, you know, what doing portraiture of women, of femmes, really how that kind of functions as well within art and media. And so here, the smaller portrait is of my sister Jess, and then the larger canvas is of this abstract shape, but really mirroring it together as a full portrait of her. And the idea with this is to bring a high level of abstraction so that it symbolizes the constant evolution that we are all going through, you know, because sometimes portraiture, especially of women, there's a compression that can happen where, you know, it's seen, it flattens it, you know, it flattens the person. And so this was a way of doing these portraits of people that I love and feeling like I was giving this, this kind of protective ward against this flattening so that they could always be seen as hyperdynamic. And that's why you have the word figure there and shape, and kind of getting to that idea. And all the words in this series deal with some kind of formal quality within fine art and design as well. So the painting of Diana, that one is also, the background shape is from one of these tests as well. And I saw it as also kind of like a portal, you know, this idea that you're seeing her, but only for a moment while this portal is open. And when you see it up close, you can see that her bottom half is completely painted. And so is her shirt, which pictures Betty Boop. And so you have, and then up top, it slowly grows in reality. And so it has this kind of combination of going in and out of portraiture and abstraction in a way. And the word type is there on the left, and up top it says proto, and so that the whole thing says prototype. And on the other top right corner is a picture of my grandpa and his brother in zoot suits, and kind of connecting the aesthetic lineage as well. That photo of my grandfather was in the 50s, and this one taken of Diana in 2020, and you can see the aesthetic lineage there, and also mirroring that with the kind of aesthetic lineage between Betty Boop, you know, and how she has also become a symbol as well. And the shape behind her also subtly, like, I loved that it also kind of had a quality that we do see sometimes in religious paintings of the Virgin, of the Mother, and seeing, but also it not pushing that, you know, it is lightly there. And yeah, that's really what this one is about too. And all of both Jess and Diana, all the women pictured, there is a level of abstraction even to their faces. I painted them as well, and they also have a layer of photography underneath them as well, but I've like hyper colorized it so that you can see the detail of the person, but there also is a hyper reality to it.
Exactly. Well, Gabriela, and what about the other important piece from Veronica Form from 2020, this particular triptych that you created during the pandemic, and when you are present some questions about gender, representation, and identity?
Yeah, so this painting is of my friend Veronica. She is from Whittier. She still lives there. And this was taken last year when she was pregnant with her son Tomas. And I really didn't know what I was gonna do with this photo. I just, she's a good friend and just wanted to take the photo and potentially work with it. And then once I started painting, it just naturally kind of became its own creation story as well, you know. Even in the structure of the painting, you have the 3 panels that kind of have this idea of religious paintings, you know, with the side panels. And on the left, there's specifically no words on that panel, and that's kind of supposed to be like kind of like the beginning, you know. There is no word there. It's like, if you see it up close, there's all these like swirly oil pastel lines that I just kind of like was scribbling wildly to kind of get this idea of this swirling kind of abyss of creation. And you see there also an hyper edited photo of the Virgin as well, or the Mother Mary actually. And then juxtaposing that with Veronica, where, you know, the statue of the Mother looks very, android-like almost. It looks human related, but not quite human, you know, and then having the reality of Veronica and her figure there was important to me. And then on the left you have on the right you have the panel that says form, and up top, if you look close, I've like written word, like WORD in pencil, and this idea of like word also creating meaning as well, and from form, kind of again talking about how meaning is created within culture in general, but also within art specifically as well. Thinking about the female figure and where these forms really come from, and the shape behind Veronica as well, that kind of is like a flower, like a collar, is a shape from one of those ink blot tests as well. Again, acting as a kind of ward of this really abstracted, organic, ambiguous shape that kind of brings this level of always changing and moving. Just the way in which her body, a pregnant woman's body, is always changing and evolving, and going through this intense cycle. And also the little devil and angel, kind of symbolizing as well this idea of this creation story, this subtle religious tone to it, but in a way that is also outside of the church, and also isn't necessarily good and bad or good and evil. It's more about these dualities that we all have within ourselves. And I thought it was really important that, or I just really enjoyed seeing Veronica's portrait as a mother. And again, she dressed however she wanted to present herself and posed however she felt comfortable, which did end up being in this very classic pose. Yeah, that's kind of what this one is about. And also the word from on the bottom is actually in metal, and it kind of pops out a little bit. And the idea also being that like, this is all of these, I left the strokes very brushy because I wanted this to be that to be a part of the conversation too, where these are paintings. These are not trying to be a stand as like bigger than the person themselves. These are very much supposed to be like, these are paintings. The metal word popping out is supposed to also bring that to the forefront too, of where the metal words are popping out in becoming a tangible reality in the way that the figure isn't, because it is a painting.
Yeah, this is so unique, Gabi. And in your practice, you explore a different form of communication, right? The authoritative and the personal, contrasting your concern about social and political psychology with the binary definition surrounding gender, race, and migration, right? And I would like to invite you to watch the video Baile Final, and then talking about this poetic piece and the importance of the body language in your creative process. Wow, Gabi, I really love this piece, and I think it's so poetic, but also you are talking about different information, right? And you put the focus in the body language. How do you produce the research in this kind of piece, Gabi?
Yeah, so I made this one with some friends in 2018 or 2019. And it really started from this photo that I have of my dad while he was in a juvie camp when he was 16 one time, and there's a photo of him where the first frame of the video starts out with based off of that photo. And the idea with the first frame is that, you see that first shot and, already there's some kind of story that might start in someone's mind. And the story would be different depending on, your relationship to the community or with this kind of aesthetic or structure. And then thinking about also that this was made to go in a gallery, and so having that in mind, seeing the frame expand, and as it expands, you see that the figure is actually standing next to a ballerina who's in the same position, which puts it in a totally different context. And then they go through this choreographed dance that we came up with together that spans between classical ballet poses and body language pulled from Chicano, Pachuco Cholo culture, stuff also specifically seen in photos that I work with as well. And so you'll see a moment of classical ballet poses, and you'll see a moment where, their hands come together like this, and it pauses for a second, and then it moves into this fluid dance. And the idea with this also is, kind of a symbolism of the fluid movement and thinking of how we have to move through society a lot of times and navigate, and thinking of that as this kind of dance, and also bringing a softness to a hyper masculinity, because it is there, and it is everyone has these a masculine and feminine within them, and a lot of times it is pushed out of all of us, through life. And so really a way of weaving that in a way that felt very natural as well. And it was shot in places all around my studio, which is also where my dad would hang out a lot too. And so in these environments that were very, were very city and emblematic, but also having, you can hear in the audio, which actually the harp is played by my friend Diana, who was in the last painting. And you can hear like the little birds in the background too. And so bringing this kind of this like softness to these environments as well, because there is that softness that you can find there too. Yeah.
Yeah, and Gabi, in our galleries, we present this video in dialogue with another important painting, first and second from 2019. Can you explain us the connection between both pieces?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in the last video too, it's actually on a loop, and so that again is kind of getting at that idea of life and rebirth. And so this painting was made before the video, and then working with this imagery inspired the video. And so the the like smaller red and green photo that you screen printed photo that you see on the like right side, that is a cropped view of the photo that I was talking about of my dad. And the photo below it is an edited version of a Degas painting where from one of his ballerinas, where the feet position is similar. And then the male figure in the photo at the top is from one of those another psychological projection test called thematic apperception, where in these you were, instead of seeing ink blots, which seeing these abstract shapes, you then are presented with these vague sketches of people or scenes, and you have to describe what you think is happening. And so it's kind of, here I'm making my own type of psychological projection image in context with these photos, where the painted figure in the back is actually the full figure from the photo at the top from that projection test, but I've changed his style of dress a little bit, just slightly, and then in context with these pictures, to kind of make my own image, my own test image. And then the word baile kind of getting at further like integrating this, so that it's hard to really come up with any one concrete reading of this, because it's always in flux in between. And that's what this one was. Yeah. And then that really did birth the video, because I was like, it would, there are some ideas that that are meant to be expressed in painting, and then there are others that can be expressed other ways that you couldn't get in another medium.
Yeah. And Gabi, through your artwork, you decode the complex vocabulary of our time, reconfiguring signs, roots, and gesture with a radical sensibility. And the next group of pieces that I would like to share with our audience is Portal, the group of sculptors that we present in the gallery too.
Yeah. So I made these the most recent, and they really came out of me playing around in the studio, and where I had chain that I had used on paintings before, where I laid it on paintings and then spray painted so that it would get this ghost pattern of a chain. And then I had photos of that I was working with, a family that I had edited, and they were laying on the ground. And then I kind of just started playing around, configuring them together. And I liked it. And I started thinking of these as portals, as little and ways of remembering. And so I wove them together with thinner chain and thinner metal wire so that they would stay together, and had a friend weld them for me so that they would stay. And then within them is woven different beading. So there's plastic beads, there's synthetic gems and stones, and then there's also natural stones and gems. And if you look closely, you'll see stuff that you would recognize from crafts from kids, or from decorations from quinceañeras or family parties, and then also stones like turquoise and stuff like that is important, and it's something that my family wears a lot. And then these photos are all from different family photos from different sides of the family too, that I've kind of cropped to focus on different gestures or moments. And there is this kind of male or masculine and feminine kind of energy within these. And yeah, so I think and if you look too, there's I took like steel wool and kind of scrubbed them down so that they looked like there was some wear and use to them, because I didn't want them to seem like these pristine, untouchable objects. The idea was almost like creating like an artifact, like that the idea that these are actual portals that are used, that people would go to them and look at them and you know, spend time with them to connect to themselves or different moments, and that there is like a use, because that is, you know, in the statement where it says, I think of art as and my art practice as a tool for survival and coping with survival, and that's kind of what I wanted to be embodied with these sculptures.
Yeah, and Gabby, the next group of painting that I would like to talk with you and analyze a little more about your concept is about so much, too much, and self-determination in 5 color. And I think there are a particular pieces because you decide to show and present a couple of men, but you decide at the same time don't show their face, right?
Yeah. So the painting on the left was made in 2018, and that one is also on paper and made with house paint. And yeah, this is from a picture of my grandpa and his brothers. And it again, I was looking at, like, you know, the aesthetic lineage that I've talked about before, and their faces are concealed in, as I was mentioning, in this like hardline abstraction as a way of protection, because they've passed, or because they have records, or just because I wanted to shield them a little bit. And the idea and the wording, not so much or so much too much, is again talking about that that line and balance sometimes that that we are pushed to walk. And the painting on the right was made this year, and it's kind of hard to tell in the photo, but when you see it in real life, there's the word image that I like put paint in like a squirt bottle and squirted it to write the word image, you know, almost like if you did frosting on a cake or something. And so it says the word image there, but it's crossed out, and I painted over in silver, and so you can see the relief of it. But this whole painting is really about, well, on the right you have a picture of it's a full picture of my uncle and his friend, but I've cropped it so that you can't really see much at all, but I've left enough aesthetic cues in there through style of dress and everything like that, that if you're able to read what's there, you're able to kind of see the fuller picture. And then on the left, I have it's a sketch photo of the psychological projection test that was in the ballet painting. And the person is doing the same stance as the person on the right. And then I put paint over the photo on the right of from my uncle and his friend, and then sandwiched these together and glued them onto the canvas to create my own ink blot image. And you know, you can see here that the paint is like bleeding past any lines or boundaries from the body. And again, this is about that kind of like, even in the title, self-determination in 5 colors, that idea of self-determination, where how do you retain your roots, retain your reality, and also expand past any predetermined path, and have the freedom to move in whatever ways you need to or want to for your life, and how to create that space and mobility for yourself. And and that's why the word image below is kind of painted over and crossed out as well, because it's again talking about that idea, but within language, and how sometimes, you know, less words is more, but even one word is very powerful and can be helpful or hurtful, you know, especially thinking within context of my dad and family, who, you know, a word can be potentially condemning, you know, thinking in terms of law and stuff like that.
Yeah, and Gabby, the last artwork before to open the Q&A session is flag from 2020. And I know that this piece is so important for you. And I would like if you can tell us about your message in this particular piece and your approach and connection with the theme and the community of Los Angeles.
Yeah, so this flag is, there was a larger version of this flag made that was shown at the Momentary, which is in Arkansas, and it was actually flown like an actual flag. And so when I was asked to make a flag for this kind of installation, I really had to think about, you know, the symbolism of a flag, my own relationship to a flag, and my relationship to land. And so here you see the fabrics. These fabrics I worked in that have connections with my family in different ways. You know, you have some more of the traditional textiles, and then that you can see from Mexico, but also from different parts of Central and South America as well. And then you also see fabrics that are more specific to my family and to LA specifically, and kind of come together in this symbiotic composition, complementary composition. Then you have a photo so this flag is quilted too, which also my friend Diana, she helped me do all of this. So you have this photo printed on fabric that is of family members that were evicted by Dodger Stadium to build Dodger Stadium. And it's usually referred to as Chavez Ravine, but the living family members don't like the use of that because they feel like they rightly feel like it compresses the conversation, and they prefer it to be referred to the three communities that were actually there, which were La Loma, Palo Verde, and Bishop. And that actually had like schools and agriculture and a whole community events. It was a really full-formed community that was there in this space. And you see women from the families fighting, arguing with the authorities, and you see a hand from the press reaching in to record. And at the top is the word seed. And then on the other side of the flag, you see a vague mimicry of the US flag pattern with the stripes. But the photo on this side, which you can't see too well in this photo, but the photo on this side is from the Bracero program, which you know, exploited laborers who would come over from Mexico to work, often in the land and through agriculture, and they were being fumigated with actually this I think it was called Zyklon B or something like that. It's this chemical that then Nazi Germany actually used because they were seeing it used here in their own like gas chamber programs over there. And then at the bottom it says, "We reap what we sow." And for me, I really liked the duality of this phrase, where depending on your own position of where your family you know, have been within history, this could either be an ominous statement or a like rallying cry. You know, for me, this flag is really more supposed to be encouraging that, you know, the seeds that we plant are growing and do continue, and that it's really a statement about this tradition of persistence and resistance that we have and continue to work within. And also this kind of bringing an issue together of migration, immigration within different countries, but also within cities, even within terms of gentrification, and linking that to really how it all comes down to this exploitation of those without economic means to defend their rights to their property or have to move because of labor, and that it really being two sides of the same or similar coin.
Yeah, and thank you, Gabby, because I think this piece is so important in the middle of the gallery as a philosophical proclamation, right? To continue to talk about these important issues. And thank you for your time. And well, Gabby, we are opening the Q&A session now. Jorge Cibaja is the curatorial assistant, and he can read the question from our audience.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. If you haven't already, please feel free to send in a question. I'll read your question out loud. Don't feel shy about sending it in. But while we wait for a few questions to come in, I thought I'd ask a question myself. A lot of your work seems to be like a sort of a family related and is of all relation. Has there ever been a moment where you felt like, or how do you work on striking that balance between bringing your specificity to work and then balancing that with like the spaces that your work will inhabit? And has there ever been a time where you're like, I don't want to talk about this or make this work?
Yeah, for sure. I think especially those first two paintings that we showed, I really didn't like, I had never really been shown in galleries or anything like that before that, and so I wasn't even really prepared for those to go in there. And when I talked about them, then it was very much more like vague and coded, and like I didn't make it as legible as I did today in the conversation. This is actually kind of the first time that I've done that, just because I wasn't sure if I was ready or even wanted to. And I think sometimes I probably still won't talk about it like that. It kind of just depends on like how it feels, or like if I think it might be useful, or people might be in the room that could connect with it in some kind of deeper way, that that there would be that connection, and not kind of misinterpretation of things. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it definitely does get tricky.
Definitely. I'm not sure if Alex had a question, but he says, hi, Gabriella.
Hey.
Once again, yeah, feel free to ask any questions. Oh, there's the question. What are your hopes for the future of the LA art community?
I don't know. I feel like my hope is that, I don't think I have any one hope. I think I'm really encouraged to be making work and see other people making work that kind of does engage the systems that we work in as well. Not just formal qualities of art, but can also bring in the context of the social and everyday real life for a lot of people, and not just those who are used to going to museums, but everyone, and getting really, my hope would be that institutions, museums, galleries really return to maybe more of the roots of art, which is much more formed from community engagement, from community collaboration, and really thinking of it as not just a like an encyclopedia, but more of a community archive, a community center even, and how can we restructure not just philosophically, but also business wise, because that is something that we have to be addressed, which I think you see in my work a lot. There is a lot of issue with capitalism, with class, and thinking about how institutions can also restructure to really be this life-giving support as well, if they really are asking for us to engage and move in that way. Because I think for me as an artist, you know, I'm progressing within the art world, but also trying to move slowly, because I think it's cool to be with artists who are also questioning, is the goal really that we need to submerge ourselves further within academia, when academia, you know, has been one of the most unchanging pillars, when you think about it in context with government and the church and academia. Those are three that have been around forever and historically change very slowly, and yet influence all of our lives deeply. And so how can institutions kind of be these, have more fun with artists and be these kind of renegade rebels potentially that can help us be maybe more rooted in the communities that we're actually a part of.
Definitely. Now we're rolling in the questions.
Let's go.
Patrick Moore asks, how and when did you decide to make the leap and become an artist, building on these personal and very intimate themes?
Yeah, I think I avoided it for a long time. Like I would do art that did tap into it, but just like in more coded terms, because I just wasn't ready to really talk about it or address it, you know. Like I think because it can be such from like a personal place for me. But also I would say like not every artist has to create from that place either. I think each artist has their own things that they want to circle around, and I think it's, you know, everyone should do that, whatever they feel led to kind of ruminate on and talk about and work about, because there are many different conversations that we can all have at the same time that help feed each other, you know. But I think for me, I was like doing graphic design to support myself, and I was like working for a company that was like really terrible and I hated it. And so I quit my job. I was doing freelance graphic design, and I was kind of like, I kept feeling like that itch to like tap back in and keep doing it. And I was kind of like, okay, I'm like barely making ends meet, and if I'm gonna do this art thing, let me just try it right now, and I'm gonna give myself like 2 years, and if nothing happens, then I'll just like move on and like kind of just do something else, you know, because I needed to get stable economically for myself and my family. But then within those 2 years, that's really when things started going, you know. So I think that's kind of when.
Sort of a related question from Gabriela. What's been, because again, related to the idea of your like really close family connection in your work, what's been their reaction to that, if any?
Yeah, it's been good. Yeah, they've been really supportive and really engaging, and which has been important to me, you know, because I think I didn't want to do this work if I felt like I could, like my family couldn't come with me and feel comfortable, and we couldn't like have a good time in these spaces too, you know. But they've been very supportive and really helpful too, you know, like the conversations that I have with them are really informative for me around the work as well. And obviously it has been emotional too. But yeah, this is my cat right here. But yeah, it's been cool.
Next question, Rohadian asks, you kind of already touched about the transition from graphic design to painting, but another question that he asked was, what is a message you want to communicate to people who see your art?
That if you want to make art, you can do it. You can paint with things from Home Depot, get a piece of paper, get a Sharpie, you know, like I think we all need to express ourselves more.
Definitely. Vanessa Gonzalez says, hi, Gabby, love you. How are your
Hey.
pieces and the cultural, how are your pieces in the cultural social conversations they present received abroad in other countries?
It's hard to say. I don't know. I feel like it's changing because now, especially in this moment, LA is more visible. And also like, you know, I speak from a specific standpoint, you know, which is that I grew up here, you know, in LA. So the like Chicano perspective or the kind of language that we have is seen a moment too, where it's kind of expanding and you see things like, you know, people in Japan engaging with it and stuff like that. So I think that, but I will say, and also you can see like that each country kind of has their own version of generations that are in these in-between spaces. So that's been really cool too. I think but I don't know. I'm still kind of learning how it's taken. I think sometimes it's still people aren't still totally sure what to do with it sometimes.
Fernanda Angulo asks, was it extremely difficult to discuss the past that society takes us as individuals in life regarding all of the political issues that your work discusses, by addressing it in your paintings? She also says, very nice to meet you.
Oh, hi. Yeah, I mean, sometimes I'm like, oh, damn, maybe this next one I'll just like paint a pretty flower because I need a break, you know? And like, that's valid too. Like, I love seeing photos of like, you know, things that are just pretty and kind of this meditative break too. But for whatever reason, I keep going back to kind of circling around these themes, you know?
Definitely. We're going to squeeze one more in and then close the Q&A. Another one from Alex. What has been the most challenging aspect of your art career, and what advice would you give to a young artist starting their journey today?
I would say like definitely find other friends who are making art and engaging in conversations that you want to have or are interesting to you, because there can be a lot to navigate, especially business wise. So I think talk to each other, share with each other, you know, get a little chismosa about like, oh, this is like, you know, this is, I wish I would have known this going in. I think like always get paid for your work, always get paid, no matter what. That is huge. I think just in the creative industries in general, all industries, obviously, I believe like, you know, just workers, laborers in general, and especially in the creative industry, it is often, we are often pushed to not be fully compensated for our work or our labor. But I think, you know, everyone has their own path too. I definitely did things for free in the beginning. But my hope is that now, especially after the year of protesting, a year of kind of social awakening, that we will really be in a different place or moving towards a different place where we feel empowered to advocate for ourselves, that we can kind of move the practice of short ending the labor or workers can be a thing of the past. And so that's what I would say.
Thanks everyone for your questions. That will close the Q&A, and thank you, Gabby.
Thank you, Jorge. Well, Gabriela, you are an inspiration. You are an amazing artist, and thank you for your time, for your generosity today.
Thank you guys. This was fun.
Yes, right. And well, we would like to invite all of you to visit us as soon as possible to enjoy the exhibition of Gabriela. And of course, it's in the same moment in our calendar exhibition with the great Chicana artist Urtiaga, her first retrospective in the US. And well, we would like to invite you to see you next Zoom project with the amazing artist Jaime Muñoz too. Okay. Gabi, thank you so much.
Thank you all. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.